Hello, everybody. Let's just give people a few minutes to join us. Thank you for joining. Excited to chat with everyone today. Maybe I'll actually start here. My name is Drew Scott. You may recognize me as the cooler half of the Property Brothers. I just made that part up. Maybe Jonathan's the cooler half. I don't know. But excited to be here with all of you. As I said, we'll give a few minutes for everyone to come in and join. I'm really excited to be here to chat with everybody. I'm here with the Mental Health Coalition. And the thing for me is that communication is so important. And I think communication between people to be understood and heard is a way for us all to connect more and show support and love. And I think mental health is something that affects everybody, whether it's yourself or someone that you love. And so I think it's more relevant for a lot of people than you may think. And I think the more we talk about mental health, the more it won't be a scary stigma for people to discuss. And again, that will lead to more support for everybody. I've made some notes here as well because I am a note-taking kind of guy. And by the way, I am here in support of Kenneth Cole and his amazing month-long project called Every Day in May. This is a series of one-to-one conversations all about mental health. So I have someone very special that I want to bring in and talk to as well. My wife, Linda Phan, she's beautiful, she's amazing. And a part of having a good relationship and a great marriage is to be able to navigate each other's mental health. And we have been doing a lot of that. We've been talking a lot more and we've been open with each other a little bit more, which I think is really great. She's also, this is how it works here on Instagram Live. She's actually downstairs, so I'm gonna loop her in so that we have a better visual instead of us squeezing in here to a skinny little frame. So let me just look to see if I can get Linda in here. All right. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, Linda. Oh, it's slower than I thought. There we go. Howdy.
Hi.
Welcome to the party. I just told everybody everything about you. So
Oh yeah.
There's nothing left to talk about.
I heard it all.
Oh, you did. You're listening. Okay, good. So where do we begin?
Oh gosh, are we starting now?
Yeah,
Also,
I mean,
just to give a heads up on how loud Drew's voice is, I can hear him from upstairs.
oh really? I have a foghorn
I can
voice.
hear you.
I definitely have a foghorn voice. But I mean, I think the big thing I was mentioning for us, we've been making a conscious effort to communicate a lot more. I think that the hardest thing for me has always been, you know, I have this shorthand with my brother. I have a twin brother. You guys know Jonathan from Property Brothers, and we sort of just talk direct to each other in a way that no sugarcoating or anything. We know how each other take it, and
Which is great.
Which is great. But then as soon as I
Yeah.
try and take that shorthand and talk to anyone else, I can sound a bit sharp and abrupt, and it's not the way that Linda receives what I'm intending to give, and it does cause a breakdown of communication, and it can add stress to our relationship. And along with the pace of what we are used to working at, I think that's also another thing that can help. It doesn't help our mental wellness, and so
Yeah,
we've been talking a lot more.
Yeah, I think it's a good reminder. I mean, I think I spent years trying to keep up with Drew's. I love how we're just getting right into it, by the way.
Yeah.
I did spend a lot of our early years. So we've been together for 10 years. We've been married for 3. We just celebrated our 3rd year anniversary.
I'm a lucky guy, and we're nerdy. We got married on May the 4th. May the 4th be with you.
But yeah, I spent, I think, the first few years trying to keep up with that style of communication, and it just like burnt me out. Like it wasn't like a shorthand for me. It was more confusing because it sounded, you know, just more stern and sharp. And I don't like sharp cheddar. I like medium cheddar.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm a medium cheddar kind of guy too. But I was saying just before you came on as well, I think a big part of us all supporting each other a little bit more is taking that extra breath and moment to understand how we're communicating, because how we communicate can really it can build up a lot of animosity. It can build tension. It can put up defensive blocks, which all of those things, especially if somebody's suppressing how they're really feeling because of these things, can really build into mental health issues. And I think the stress that, you know, like I said, we're traveling a lot and we're filming, and then we're jumping from work. We work together as well. That's a whole other thing, everybody. Linda and I work together and we're married. So it's adding layers to the stress. And I do find sometimes, you know, people will post on social media, or we'll hear comments saying, you know, you guys are the perfect couple. They envy everything about what we, that, you know, what we are in our couple, and it's perfect. And I don't like that because it's not realistic.
It
There's, you
makes
know,
me
what,
cringe. It
yeah,
actually makes me cringe, and I know partly, well, no, wholeheartedly, like it's our fault because that is what we share. Like we're used to sharing the highlights. But I do cringe when read comments, when we read comments that say like, "Oh, you guys are so perfect," like couple goals, blah blah blah. And I know they're all well intentioned, but it is what we share. So we are practicing,
yeah.
sharing not just the highs, but sharing the progress and the process of getting through the lows.
Yeah, because we are human like everyone else, and again, like you said, what's shown on social media can sort of be, I guess, misleading for everybody if you're scrolling through your friends' pages and all you see are the best moments. But yeah, it's it has been work. We've been, like we said, together 10 years, and um you know, I find we do, Linda and I are very different people, and I think the way we are, you know, I'm sort of a fast paced, my brain's working a mile a minute. Linda is that sort of slow chill. We're like the turtle and the rabbit, except for that we got married. And but anyway, it's the way, because of how we are, we have added stress to each other's lives, because for the first years we didn't realize that we were trying to fit each other into what we wanted for the mold for the other person, instead of trying to understand
Well,
each other.
I mean, I didn't want this to be like a bigger session, but I think it was me trying to fit into your
Yeah.
world and
Yes,
your
definitely.
fast-paced world because your job is what brought us on the road.
Yeah.
And I quickly learned that because of that, I burnt out. Um, and I've realized like that's not the pace that I want to go. You can
Yeah.
do that, but I need to set boundaries for myself as to like how we want to have our relationship together. And
Yeah.
in a way that's not requiring me to just fit into your world.
Yeah, and I think that was an unhealthy thing, and I was oblivious to it for the most part. And again, as you know, you didn't want to cause any rifts or any issues because the pace of what was happening with work and whatnot, and it was causing conflict in our relationship, which was giving you a lot of mental stress. I was exhausted, and then there were moments where I know that you're not communicating with me, and that would give me stress as well, because I obviously want to be there for you. And we've been seeing a therapist for quite some time, and it's really exciting to talk about that too, because some people may think that therapy is something you do when there's a problem, but I feel that the good thing is to be proactive. The same way you might, you know, eat healthy or go to the gym, you're being proactive about your health. Well, this is our way of being proactive with our mental health, that we're trying to make sure that we're learning ways to communicate better ahead of time, so that it's not too late. So it's not, yeah, it's not at a point where all we can see is red when we're talking to each other.
Yeah. And I
Mm.
think you brought up a point before that I want to be sure to ask Dr. Shefali when we bring her on later. In the past, I never spoke up because you said I was scared of causing a rift. And I would like to ask her, like, why is it typically that women in relationships may feel or have a harder time bringing things up because they don't want to be that
Yeah,
burden?
yeah.
So yeah, that's something I would love to ask
Well,
her.
I mean, and I think that's great too. Very relevant to her book as well. Wait, did you just blow my surprise? Our
Oh shoot,
secret
was it?
guest?
It wasn't a
Our secret
surprise.
guest.
It was
Okay,
not a
I'm
surprise.
just saying that. But you know, actually, one thing we haven't talked about too, and we'll bring Dr. Shafali in a couple of minutes here, but is self-love. I think is such an important thing that. So Linda and I are both very much family and friends people. We love to do everything for family and friends. We would, you know, we would be away, but we would let family and friends stay at our house, and we would forget that they're there. We come home and then didn't realize they were there. But we were always trying to do something for them, which is, I think it's a good quality. But we were realizing that we were putting ourselves in a back seat, and it was really starting to wear on us. And so the more, at least for me, the more I focused on understanding what was important to me and my values, and focused a bit more on that, it actually has helped strengthen our relationship too, because Linda and I see eye to eye on that as well.
hmm And then in areas where we don't, on the topic of self-love, in areas where we don't agree, we have to see that the other person, like taking baths may be my form of self-love, but it's not yours, so I can't force you to take a bath with me. Although once in a while I
Staying up and watching Mortal Kombat until 2 in the morning, that's my
yeah,
self-love.
that's not my idea of self-love. I can meet Drew halfway. and say like, I will watch Mortal Kombat with you if we start at 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I will fall asleep or I will have violent dreams.
Yeah. But also, how about, I mean, the idea, what we've actually been really good with, or I feel we have been a lot better, is the idea of prioritizing our romance and prioritizing our little mini date nights or little romantic gestures that we do for each other. Because I do find it does sound, right off the top, it sounds unromantic to be scheduling date nights and stuff like that. But then we realized we just weren't doing them. Or when we did squeeze something in, we were still thinking of work. But the idea of scheduling, and we know nothing else on our plate is going to bother us here. This is our focus time on each other. I've actually really enjoyed it. And I think it gives me this sense of calm and this mental calm that allows us to connect better.
Yeah, it definitely makes me feel more loved knowing that we're being intentional about making time to spend together, because it's very easy to say like, oh, we didn't have time to, just chill for an hour or just like take a day for ourselves. But it's about making that time, because it's very easy to let work and everything else get in the way.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to self-love and like being able to voice our needs, because I think we've struggled with this in the past, and I don't think we talked a lot about it until, more recently or maybe a few years ago. Um, but I'm usually the quieter one in a relationship, and Drew is obviously more outspoken and just physically like you're just
I'm
louder.
a foghorn.
So I think the one thing that we have had to work on is like, how do we create that space so that everyone feels comfortable to say what they need.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, through our therapy sessions, we've learned like it just comes down to asking and listening.
Yeah, I've had to work on listening a lot, because I'm used to being that take charge sort of person, and then I didn't realize that I was sort of like, bullishly taking the mic all the time and not giving you a chance to breathe and speak and sit in your thoughts, because I think that's something you need, that space and time, where I'm used to that pace. And so I think giving you that chance to speak, and then showing that I'm listening and understanding, I think has really helped you feel appreciated and help you feel valued. And I think that's strengthened our relationship there as well. I think this is a great time to bring Dr. Shefali in. So, I mean, we want to bring in an expert in an area of mental health. And Dr. Shefali is a clinical psychologist and author of a trailblazing new book, A Radical Awakening. We actually had Dr. Shefali on our podcast. The episode will come out in a few weeks. It was amazing, amazing, amazing to dig in and learn more. And Dr. Shefali doesn't know this yet, but we're going to actually have her chat with us every week for the rest of our lives. So without further ado, this is Dr. Shefali. First off, thank you for joining. There, we'll get nice and cozy.
Hi. Hi.
We miss you already from our chat not too long ago.
Oh, it was a great
we have
chat.
so much to ask.
Thank you. Thank you.
So first off, again, your book is amazing, and we actually have 3 copies of your book. So we've given it to our sister-in-law, another friend of ours, Courtney, and then we have ours, A Radical Awakening. What we had said when we were talking before, though, that I really love is it's a book that you've written for women, but there's so much that men can get from this book too. And it's really, speaking about mental health and why we're all here talking today, it's really been something that can help us understand each other, which can help alleviate a lot of the mental stress in our lives.
Well, I'm so happy that you wrote the book, and I'm so happy that Drew read it.
Absolutely. It's so important, everything you brought up, because we have this idea that only really crazy people go for help, or you have to be at the end of your rope, you have to be near divorce, or your kid has to be really acting out. And that's the thing we're trying to change through this mental health awareness, because our mental health is a daily practice. It's a daily muscle. And I always tell people in my own practice that the fact that they're there is not because they're crazy, it's because they care about their well-being. So if we could destigmatize it for our children, for our couple, for our relationships, then people would seek it preemptively and take care of that muscle, so that when they are hitting hard times, they are better prepared. It's the greatest thing we can do for each other, is to go seek mental health well-being from a professional or from a self-help course, so that we can build that muscle just like we do, like you said, other muscles of our body or our diet. It's so important to clean out the mental diet.
Yeah. And that's something that I have always found interesting is if I broke my wrist, none of my friends or family are going to be like, I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk, he broke his wrist. Let's just, but when that's the physical issue that I would go see a therapist for to fix. But the moment you're thinking about something with mental health, people are afraid to discuss or talk about it. I love how you stipulate to it. Like it's so important to be proactive. And the more we talk about it, the more it's going to seem like an everyday thing that we can talk about to support each other.
Yeah, and we adults need to change the tide so our children don't feel this pressure that they have to be perfect. We are living in a culture where, like you said, people look at you like you're kind of crazy if you say you're seeking counseling as a couple, or you want to become better in a certain area of your life. People look at that as if you're lesser than. But that's a complete misunderstanding. And, I grew up in India. In India, mental health is really stigmatized. And we have to create a new pattern, a new way of looking at it for our children, so that they realize that communication and well-being is such a high priority for us. It affects every area of our life.
Yeah.
So why do you think with some couples, talking to the other spouse about depression or mental wellness can be so difficult?
Because we've been shamed for this. We've been shamed to have anxiety, to have issues. We have this mask of perfectionism in our culture today. Everyone is trying to show the one up. So, on social media posts, we don't want to show up looking bad, or we don't want to post things about our children when they fail. So we're all lending this image that we're all perfect because we're hiding behind this disguise. And if only we could break that and show up as human and show up as ordinary and say I'm struggling in my marriage, but I'm working on it, then it will lend to a new paradigm. But I think it's shame because we have this mask of perfectionism.
Yeah, and so, and I agree, and we were talking about that earlier too. Like it's something that we're actually trying to change too, to show a bit more of the real side of our lives as well, because it's not all shiny and polished. We're real people like everyone else.
In my books, I really speak to authenticity and how we're so afraid to show up authentic because we have these ideas that we have to be successful and competent and young forever. So we're hiding it, so if we're not young forever, we feel bad about ourselves. We feel lesser than. And the most amazing thing I've seen in my practice is that we all, I can't tell you, across cultures, across demographics, have issues. Why can't we just accept that and now embrace them with that self-love that you were talking about?
If everyone wants to be perfect with no issues, let's just call all of ourselves, we're perfectly imperfect.
Yes.
We're all unique.
Yes.
What is a way that you find you can actually see if there's mental health concerns that your spouse is dealing with, but they're not talking to you about it? What are some signs that we can look out for?
Yeah, it's really hard when you are in a relationship and you see the problem, but the other person is not ready to see the problem. And it's hard to struggle and cope with that. So I really encourage people in that kind of couple to take care of themselves. Sadly, we cannot change other people. We can only create that consciousness for ourselves. So creating healthy boundaries, taking care of yourself, putting yourself first, maybe that will rub off on the other people and they will wake up to their problems. But we can't fix people. We can't fix other people. We can't change them. We can only show up in the best way as we possibly can and hope that that will bleed onto the other people around us.
That's actually, I'll say for me, is one of the hardest things I've had to catch myself is I found that I wasn't being understanding from Linda's point of view or her perspective. I was almost always reiterating my thoughts and my outlook. And then I realized all that was doing is making Linda think, even before she brought something up to talk about, she would then suppress that and not talk about it because she knew what the outcome was going to be. I would have the same approach. So I'm still working on it, but I'm now able to catch myself when I'm getting into that spirit and then be able to, hold on a second, let's actually have a good conversation. I'm listening. I'm now here.
Yeah. And it's taken, so many other factors for us to get to a place where we are we have the time or make the time and are slowing down to have these conversations, and realizing that like Drew has his process and his method of dealing with his feelings, and that is definitely not my method. I need a lot more time and space, personal time and space, to think about it, process it, and then I can be ready to talk about it. Whereas before, he would expect me to talk about it right away. Otherwise, it's me being closed off and not wanting to be open.
Yeah, what you're really referring to is, first, you both are self-aware. That is the first step to seeking help. If you're not aware that you're projecting, meaning putting all your stuff onto the other people in your life, then you're just going to be in a dysfunctional pattern. As a therapist, I can tell you, and I still get fascinated by it, even though I see it all the time, that all our issues, and everyone has them, comes from our childhood patterns, you know? So those childhood patterns with our mom and our dad, I know it's so cliched, but those patterns continue in our lives, and we keep repeating the same emotional experiences. So like Drew said, I just kept repeating the same thing, not realizing that Linda has a different childhood upbringing. So she is patterned, she is programmed in a completely different way. And this is why we have dysfunction, because we don't realize that our programming is different. And part of mental health awareness is to become aware of your own patterns from childhood. So hands down, the first thing every human should do, you know, my daughter was wondering what to study in college. And I said, don't wonder. The first thing you need to study is psychology, because you need to understand yourself, because that is the biggest block to your failure and your success, and that is your biggest impediment in a relationship. So your self-awareness as a couple allows you to say, hey, okay, this is me, this is you, let's try to find the bridge. But people don't realize that they are repeating patterns from their childhood.
Yeah, I actually did 1 year of psychology in school. I studied kinesiology, so I should have done more than one semester of it. But so a question I was curious about too is, you know, we want to have children soon, and for us, we're going back and forth thinking, how do we want to raise our kids? You know, how do we want to, try to pass on certain values? And then all the parents that I know, they're always like, this is great that you're planning it all out. Let's see once you have kids what really happens. What is a way that you feel is a good process for us to get into the mindset for how we want to pass certain values on, to be open to talking about mental health?
Yeah, well, you're doing the work right now. So many therapists talk about doing the work, and doing the work is unpacking your own childhood patterns so that you don't pass down the pain, right? And you want to sieve out the baggage from the good stuff. And in order to do that, you have to go through this inner work process that most people are too busy to do. So they deprioritize doing the inner work. And then when you have children, soon enough, and that's when I see most of my clients, you pass on all that baggage to your children. You pass on the exact same wounds of shame or unworthiness to your children, and then your children begin acting out, and that's when you seek help. But we don't want to wait till our children begin acting out to seek help. So mental health is such a priority. It's not about mental disease. It's not about mental illness. That's why it's called mental health, just like physical health. And I can't tell you how people in their 50s, in their 60s are tortured by their early childhood patterns because they didn't do the inner work.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Thinking about it in a way, like thinking about generational trauma just gives so much urgency to dealing with your own mental wellness, because, you know, we think when it comes to ourselves, it's very easy to put off my own health, you know, like we tend to take care of everyone else first. But if you think about like, this is for our future generations, it's like, yeah, we got to get on it now.
Yeah, but another good thing that you guys are doing is that you're looking at each other as a mirror to how you need to work on yourself. And people in couples forget to do that, or they just get lost in the blame game. And we need to realize that every relationship we attract or we are in is here to show us our wounds. So we should, even the worst relationship, the most dysfunctional relationship, is here to show us how we are part of that emotional recreation. So I often tell people in couples, you know, it's so hard when you're in a couple and it's falling apart. Somebody wrote, my relationship is on the brink. But instead of looking at it like it's on the brink or it's falling apart, look at it as, what is this relationship trying to show me about my own pain, about my own insecurities? How is this reflecting my own lack of self-love? And then the relationship becomes a teacher, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see too a lot of great comments. Thank you to everybody who's commenting and being a part of this. I saw Kim was saying she's in her 50s, and it's true. It catches up with you. I love how I think everybody who's on here is it's probably that same step. They're making the step to really understand and looking inward at themselves, which will help us all be more open in our communication. So can you talk a little bit about that, the idea, I think I heard you talk about this before, the idea that marriage isn't about being with each other forever. It's about helping each other grow forever. How we support each other.
So in my new book, A Radical Awakening, I teach people or give permission to people to reframe this idea of relationships or marriage. We enter these relationships with great expectations. Everybody who enters a relationship has an expectation that the other person will match their fantasy, will be their mommy or their daddy and give them unconditional love. But what we don't realize is that what we want from the relationship, we need to first give ourselves, because no other human can give that to us. So anyone out there watching who's having relationship issues, either with their children or their spouse, should first ask, what is this relationship showing me about my relationship to myself, right? And so when we reframe the paradigm that it's about expectations or it's about getting love, to how can I grow in this relationship, then it's not about the length of the relationship or how you feel in the relationship so much as, is this relationship igniting my inner growth? Is it teaching me how I need to love myself more? You know, that's what relationships are about, is, am I in relationship with myself? Am I in a marriage with myself? So we never get married to the other person really until we truly get married to ourselves.
So all I heard there at the end is the fact that, you know, we got married in Italy, in Puglia. So what you're saying is the first one was marrying ourselves. Now we have to go back and do it again to enjoy the great food out there, to marry each other. Now that we're ready.
Yeah, 2 marriages at least 2 marriages.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, I mean, one thing I will say I really enjoyed as well from, you know, reading your book too is, and knowing how you work with your clients, is that you have Eastern philosophy and Western psychology that you combine, which really I think does give people a different perspective how to understand yourself, which will help you understand others, and again, support everybody in your world. Last thing I wanted to ask you about, which we did talk about a little bit earlier, is just the stigma that, you know, mental health, people think this is extreme. When we're talking mental health, maybe if somebody's having concerns with their mental health, it means it's something extreme that they're dealing with, which isn't necessarily the case. There are different levels of what people are trying to cope with and work through. How can we support ourselves in our community, whether it's big or small?
Yeah, so first, to understand that every human I have met suffers from anxiety and suffers from this need to be seen. All of us just want to be seen as worthy. So just on that level, every single person has mental health issues, because we're all struggling to be seen. And every person who has severe mental health problems, say on the spectrum, they just want to be seen more, and they're suffering because people haven't seen them. So when you reframe this idea that it's a pathology to the idea that it's an emotional, universal plea for worth, for love, for belonging, now you've normalized it in your own mind and in others. And I will tell you, Drew, we can't wait for the world to change, right? We can't wait for the world to say, okay, go seek help with a therapist and I give you permission. We have to give that permission to ourselves. We have to prioritize it in our own lives and take the baton and say, I don't want to struggle with this pain anymore. I don't want to struggle with my battle within myself. So I'm going to go seek help. You know, people really feel nervous when they come to me to get help, because they do feel they don't want to prioritize themselves. Women especially are told that they're selfish if they take a whole hour and spend all that money on therapy, right? They feel like it's not deserving of them. And this is where I have to keep reminding people that by taking care of your mental health, you allow other people in your life to breathe easier. You know, you are coming more centered, more grounded, more present. And this is what people need in your life. So you're doing other people a favor. And when I do that for women, when I tell them that they're doing this for their children or for their partners, now it becomes okay for them, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Oh, did I cut you off?
Oh, no, I was just going to ask for a few other clear tools and steps one can take, whether it's for themselves or in a relationship, to work towards therapy. I know like just getting to therapy is a huge first step, but what are the small little steps that someone can take to get there?
Well, you know, first is the awareness that we are struggling. You know, there's so much shame to accept for ourselves that I'm not perfect. My marriage is struggling. You know, to even say those words takes so much courage. So the first step is that awareness that I'm struggling and there's nothing wrong with struggling. And it's a human experience to struggle. So I think just getting rid of those stereotypes, that stigma of shame around a human problem, which is a universal problem that we all struggle with, then you have to take that, you just have to call someone, you know, call someone who's a professional, just like Drew did with his wrist. He called somebody who's a professional. And then once you take that first step, I often see it's that first session that's the hardest. And once they see that, oh, I'm just talking to a really lovely person about myself to get to know myself, then you become more comfortable. But awareness is the key, awareness and the willingness to own that we are imperfect.
Well, thank you so much. I think, and again, thank you to everyone who's been joining and commenting as well. I saw Abbott was saying how, you know, I think you're referring to what can give anxiety and stress is FOMO, especially when we're all at home right now, you know, trying to stay safe during COVID. But Linda and I have actually embraced JOMO, the joy of missing out.
Yes.
And that's given us that mental peace because we shifted our perspective of where we are. But Dr. Shefali, we'll let you go. And
Thank
again,
you so
thank you so much. We
Thank
love your
you,
book.
guys.
Everyone out there, be sure to follow Dr. Shefali and pick up her book. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. I know you did say we had to call you 6 months after we have a baby, and we'll chat.
I can't wait. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks,
Good night,
everyone.
everyone.